So what made you get so involved in what was to become Kentucky's Anti-Degradation Odyssey of years?
Well, that was, it was the early 90s, so I'd been with KWA for just a couple of years, and we were still kind of trying to figure out exactly, what all we were doing, what our, what the scope of our work was going to be. And I was at a training, and I don't remember where it was, but it was in the Southeast.
Okay.
It was a group of Southeastern, river advocates, and it was led by Don Elder and Gail Killam, and it was on the Clean Water Act. And one of the things that they talked about was anti-degradation and this underutilized piece of the Clean Water Act, this thing that a lot of groups didn't know about and most state agencies and EPA wasn't using or enforcing.
Right.
And they said the one thing that you needed to do was when you go back to your state, you need to investigate what the anti-degradation rules were, or if they even existed in your state. So I did that. And I came to find out that Kentucky was one of the few states who had actually tried, sent implementation rules to EPA, and EPA was actually doing its job, and they rejected them. And that gave us a real lever, a real hook that a lot of other groups didn't have because their states had never even tried.
Right. So you had something to work with, even if it wasn't what you wanted. There was something to work with.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, very good. Well, so, a lot of river advocates have probably heard a little bit about your anti-degradation regulations and how they were tangled up in litigation for years. What was at the heart of the debate, if you're trying to describe what it was that you all were debating for all those legal filings back and forth? How would you describe that to someone?
Well, it's really one of the things I think is at the heart of the anti-degradation policy. It's tier 2. It's the protection that we should be given that's over and above the other Clean Water Act basic protections. And it turns out that, Kentucky, like a lot of states, has only assessed about 10 or 12% of our rivers and streams. And what they were doing was that all the unassessed waters were considered tier 1 and only given the base protection.
Right.
And, so we literally had over 90% of our waters that were only given tier 1 protection because they either weren't meeting uses or they weren't assessed.
Right. So if you don't know, we're going to assume the worst.
That's right.
Okay.
And we're going to keep moving down there until we get there.
If we're not there, we'll make sure we get there.
Exactly.
Very good. So that was at the heart of the case that you were involved with. What do you think that the Alliance and Kentucky's Rivers got out of that long litigation road? What was the resolution to that question?
Well, that is one of the key victories there. One of the key victories is that if the water body is not assessed, it's automatically considered to be tier 2.
Great.
So that means that if we don't know, let's protect it.
Right.
And I think that's one of the really big things that we won out of that. The other big thing that we won, I think, is we literally have several thousand miles of rivers and streams in Kentucky that have endangered species. And a lot of them are actually listed as impaired because of mining issues or hydro modification issues or other things. And so the state wanted to drop them off of the list because they no longer supported or didn't fully support endangered species. And we said no. And so now, even if they're impaired, they're still considered tier 2. And they still get that extra layer of protection in the hopes that someday they will recover.
They will be able to support that. Okay, very good.